it with music, beautiful music. Hello, I'm Fred Miller, and this is yet another one of my lectures in song. And before we launch into the first of my 7-part history in song series, dividing American history into 7 parts, a little bit of information about me, and also let me introduce you to my colleague and collaborator, Mr. Clyde here, always right there at the when the cameras are rolling. I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Had a wonderful classical piano teacher. I loved grand opera. I loved the classical music. And then right on my 13th birthday, the Beatles arrived. And so my musical taste expanded to include the great rock songs of the 60s as well. That would go on through high school until the summer after I graduated. A friend showed me an article in the Albuquerque paper, I guess, about this big festival, rock festival taking place in upstate New York. And we looked at that lineup and we thought, oh my God, we've got to go. And so the two of us hitchhiked most of the way from New Mexico to the Woodstock Festival, even managed to show up very prominently there in the poster. That was it for rock music for me, though. I mean, it was the peak of the rock age, and I never was interested in being a rock musician, and I didn't feel I was really cut out to be a classical musician either. I wanted to be a musician. I went to college very briefly, then just traveled around the country a bit, finally settled in Greenwich Village, and at some point somebody gave me an album of Ella Fitzgerald singing Cole Porter. Suddenly, that was my music and is my music. The world of Gershwin, Porter, Kern, Rogers, Berlin, Fred Astaire, Judy Garland, Ethel Merman, Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby. What they call now the Great American Songbook. And I came up with the idea of a lecture in song, each one being a profile of a great personality or some aspect of American popular music. Initially, I had just, I thought I would do maybe a dozen programs, performers, songwriters, but now it's expanded to 7 different categories, and now I have at least 75 different lectures in song, each one described in detail at fredmillermusic.com. As said, this is the first in a sort of a series within the big series of lectures in song. I've divided American history into 7 parts, and starting this first part goes all the way back to the beginnings of the country, and then comes right into the 20th century, ending in World War I. Something about music always reflects somehow the flavor, the tone of a society. It's just right there. Let me read a quote to you. Practically everything of importance in this country's history is commemorated in some sort of song. Songs of the American frontier, half myth, half history, tell a story more moving than dates and facts and figures. A disquieting thought is that this generation, too, may be judged someday by the songs it writes and sings. Well, it speaks well of the generation that, going back, before the 1970s, I'd say it speaks wonderfully of the society, certainly the American society, the music does. We're going to move, as I said, back into colonial times and then zip to the 19th century and then really focus on the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Obviously, at the very beginnings of the country, there were no electronic media. It was just getting the word out somehow or the other. Just stage, minstrel performances, the oleo, and then touring family troops. It would evolve into variety and vaudeville and musical theater. And then came, of course, the mass media of the 20th century, sheet music, player pianos, Victrolas, radio, film, and TV. Well, just go back to the very beginnings. I mean, it's about politics. There would be just what they call a broadside on the side of a building, just the words, and people would just have to know the tune. Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Gooden. There we saw the men and boys thick as hasty pudding. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the steppin', with the girls be handy. Well, the country grew, and of course the business of America was and is business. And getting the things, the products to the customers, the consumers. I got a mule, her name is Sal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. She's a good old worker, a good old pal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. We've hauled some barges in our day, filled with lumber, coal, and hay. We know every inch of the way from Albany to Buffalo. Low Bridge, everybody down Low Bridge, 'cause we're coming to town. And you'll always know your neighbor, you'll always know your pal, if you ever navigated on the Erie Canal. Well, the singing troops often had kind of both a political and a religious sort of flavor, and oftentimes sort of trying to teach people things as well as entertain them. Barefoot and tired, I've wandered all day, asking for work, but I'm too small, they say. On the damp ground I must now lay my head. Father's a drunkard, and mother is dead. Warning people about the alcohol, oh my goodness. And already there was this whole nostalgic movement at work. You know, this is going back to the 19th century, where people were worried about overdevelopment, and you know, this is a natural sort of reaction to this immense expansion of America here. Woodman, spare that tree, touch not a single bough. In youth it sheltered me, and I'll protect it now. The central issue of American history has been slavery, and it really took our first great American songwriter. This is the man who preceded Gershwin and Porter and Kern and Rogers and Berlin, all the rest of them. That was Stephen Foster.